You know, hardly a week goes by where a carpet cleaner doesn't ask me, hey Rob, what's the proper PSI for my tools and my equipment? Well, I'm going to break it down for you right now. But first of all, why is this so important? Well, if you get it right, the carpets come cleaner faster and better. They stay cleaner longer, you get better reviews, and you get happy clients. What happens if you get it wrong? Well, you're going to end up damaging the carpet. You could have tip blooming. You could distort the fibers. Spots come back. Brownouts. Lost customers, bad reviews. Who wants that? Nobody does. So let's go ahead and break it down. We're going to break it down in 6 areas. Those 6 areas are going to be the machine, upholstery tool, inline sprayer, wand, CET tools, and also your towel and grout. Let's get started. PSI all starts at your equipment, whether you're using a portable or whether you're using a truck mount. And almost all of them have a pressure regulator. So you want to go ahead and take the pressure regulator and adjust it to whatever you're going to be using, whether the tool. And I'm going to break those down in a second. But before I do, I want you to keep this in mind. If you're running 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 feet, you could easily lose some PSI. So get a PSI gauge and check it, and especially if it's a live reel. You know, when it comes to pressure on inline sprayers, it's very important to get it right. Why is that? Because if your pressure is too high, it actually dilutes your pre-spray and it doesn't clean over as well, and you don't know why. Now, what if your pressure is too low? Well, if your pressure is too low, then you're going to go ahead and it's going to concentrate the product, and it's going to be maybe too much in there. But there's nothing wrong with that if you have very soiled carpets. Nothing wrong with cutting your PSI down a little bit just to go ahead and get it clean. Now, so what is the proper PSI? Remember this, inline sprayers are calibrated at 400 PSI, and that's your optimal range right there. Hey, I get asked all the time, hey Rob, what's the proper PSI for carpet cleaning? Well, it varies. It can go anywhere from 300 to 500 is what most cleaners use. Here's my general rule of thumb. The lower the density, the lower the pile, the lower the pressure. The higher the density, the higher the pile, the higher the pressure. Also, don't forget this tip right here. If you're running a truck mount and you're at 100 or 200 feet from the truck mount, you could lose up to 50 to 100 PSI. So I say somewhere around 400 is generally just about right. That's what I'm running here with the TMF swivel wand 4-jet. Works like a champ. When it comes to furniture, what's the proper PSI? Well, it can range anywhere from 50 up to 300 PSI. But don't forget, if you're working close to a portable, it's pretty accurate, the numbers are. At a truck mount, you might want to go a little bit higher because you've got to travel 100, 200 feet. Now, you can be using a jetless tool or a continuous flow tool or a jet tool. Any of those are fine. Just remember, whenever you're working with a tool that has a needle valve, take the time and adjust it and keep it covered so it doesn't scratch the floor. On this synthetic furniture, I'm using Revive to clean, and I'm using Ultimate Fiber Rinse to rinse. It's looking great, and it's smelling great. Halos, crop circles, tiger stripes. If you've ever cleaned tile, grout, and stone before, you know how easily that can happen if you have the improper pressure or the improper cleaner. True, with Grout Master, you really don't need as much pressure and you don't need as much pre-agitation. Still, what is the ideal or the proper ratio for pressure when you're cleaning tile, grout, and stone? Well, first of all, to get the spinner spinning, you need at least 800 PSI. So keep that in mind, and a decent GPM. Then you go up to 2,000 PSI. Unfortunately, you got to be careful because you might drive some grout out. So check the grout, make sure it's not loose first. Remember, the better the cleaner, the less the pressure that you need. Me, I find the sweet spot somewhere right around 1,000 PSI. CET tools, cordless extraction tools. That's an acronym I came up with several years ago. 4 wands with wheels, basically. And there's 4 different models on the market. I'm just going to basically show you the Bonzer, and I'm going to show you the Mighty Speed wand. Now, everybody asks, hey, what's the proper PSI and what's the proper application? Well, for portables, you definitely want to use the Bonzer. Usually mostly made for commercial work, where the Speed wand's made for inside of a home and for commercial. So what's the optimal PSI range? Everybody wants to know what that is. Well, with this right here, it's somewhere around 300. Some guys go up to 700. I generally kind of depend on what type of carpet it is and the soiling condition. Now, when you move over to this unit over here, much larger, much more efficient, you got to figure it can clean anywhere from 500 all the way up to 1,200 PSI. And the higher the PSI, the better the flush on the dirtier the carpet.